Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today to cover the ongoing events of this officer-involved shooting. It's a tragedy. This investigation is ongoing. There's many moving parts, but we felt it important to come and give you an update from what we know up to this point. Our speakers today will start with opening remarks by Governor John Bel Edwards. Next will be Baton Rouge Mayor Kip Holden. Colonel Mike Edmondson will provide a status update and timeline of events. Next will be Sheriff Sid Gautreaux, East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff, followed by Chief Carl Dabadie of the Baton Rouge City Police. And then our federal updates will be U.S. Attorney for Middle District Walt Green and the Special Agent in charge of the FBI in Louisiana, Jeff Sillett. We will be posting all of the pictures that you will see to the State Police Facebook page. We will open up the questions at the end of all the briefings, and I'll turn it over to Governor Edwards.
Thank you, Doug, and good afternoon, everyone. We wanted to have this press conference today to update you on what we now know about yesterday's horrific attack on law enforcement and actually on the entire Baton Rouge community. Specific information related to that attack will be given to you shortly, and then at the end of the presentation today we will take some questions as well. First, and you all know this, it's no secret by now, but the shooter was in fact Gavin Long. That information was not given to you yesterday by us because it had not been forensically confirmed, as it was at about midnight last night. He's a 29-year-old from Kansas City, Missouri. He came in here from somewhere else to do harm to our community and specifically to the law enforcement officers in our community. And what's telling about that is for 6 days prior to the violence of yesterday morning, there had not been a single arrest in Baton Rouge related to any protests or demonstrations arising out of the Alton Sterling shooting. At this point, state and local officials are partnering with federal agencies to keep people safe. And as governor of the state of Louisiana, I have no higher priority than public safety. And I am absolutely confident that we have a team on the ground to not only complete this investigation, but to maintain law and order and ensure the safety of our public, those people who live here and those people who are visiting. We have partnering with us federal agencies, some of which you're going to hear from today. I have spoken today with officials from the White House, and I will be in further communication later today with the United States Attorney General, and I want to thank them for their support at this time. I want to assure everyone that this investigation will leave no stone unturned. But what I know, the actions of the law enforcement officers of the Baton Rouge community yesterday were nothing short of heroic. They ran towards danger in order to protect the public. They ran towards danger in order to render aid to fellow officers. Yesterday I visited with families at the hospital. I did so also last night. These were tremendous officers surrounded by loving families. These were good men. And we all know the story, but it bears repeating now. No greater love hath any man than to lay down his life for others. And so we're going to continue to mourn the loss of the 3 officers who were killed, and we're going to pray for the recovery for the 3 injured officers. This was a diabolical attack on the very fabric of society. And that is not hyperbole, that is not an overstatement. There is nothing more fundamentally important than maintaining law and order so that people can have good quality lives. And that's what he attacked, the very fabric of our society. And that is not what justice looks like. It's not justice for Alton Sterling or anything else that's ever happened in this state or anywhere else. It's not justice for anybody. It's certainly not constructive. It's just pure, unadulterated evil. And we're going to start our conversations here in Louisiana and around our communities with community leaders, law enforcement, governmental officials, faith leaders, so that we can find out together where we go from here. And there isn't any one of us who can fix this, but all of us can and will fix this problem. And certainly I don't have all the answers, and I know that it won't happen overnight, but it will happen. And I know that we're going to come out of this stronger than ever and better than ever. There is no division in Louisiana. And make no mistake and let there be no doubt, we support our law enforcement officers and our law enforcement agencies. At Mass last night in the Diocese of Baton Rouge, they distributed the Peace Prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And I just want to go over the first two lines of that. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. The kind of love modeled by all of these police officers yesterday. And I want to direct your attention as I sum up to the words of Officer Montrell Jackson from a Facebook post of July the 8th. And this is the last part of that post. Finally, I personally want to send prayers out to everyone directly affected by this tragedy. These are trying times. Please don't let hate infect your heart. This city must and will get better. I'm working in these streets, so any protesters, officers, friends, family, or whoever, if you see me and need a hug or want to say a prayer, I got you. I'm going to be followed by Colonel Edmondson. He's going to give you a lot more specific information, as will the other presenters here at this press conference. And then, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of the conference, we will take some questions.
Mayor.
I'm sorry. Mayor?
Good afternoon to everyone, and let me thank all of you for being here for us and getting our messages out to people all across the country. This has been, a trying day and a half for all of us. But let me again, all of these law enforcement professionals that are here today are making sure that they get as much as we need to make sure that if there are others out there, we bring them to justice as well. Let me compliment them for the diligence that they've shown in this role of making sure we have all of the facts as we move forward. Let me also say, this morning, mayors from across the country have been calling all day since early this morning. From Boston to Los Angeles, they've been calling. But you also have Orlando, where the mayor is still reeling from the disaster that happened in their city. But they are saying to Baton Rouge, just let us know what you need and we will be there. Mayors from all over the city. But the most touching call came from Mayor Rollins of Dallas. Mayor Rollins said, Mr. Mayor, last week we were going through the same thing that you all are going through this week. It is going to be tough for you and the families of these officers. And it's going to be tough as we try to bring our city back together. But know that we stand ready to hold hands with you and let people know that it's going to be tough, but you will not be walking alone. But Mayor Rollins also said this to all of the law enforcement people, and many of the other mayors have said the same thing. We want you to know that when we find the details of funeral services, we will have representatives in Baton Rouge to be here for you, law enforcement as well as government. So today, we thank them for reaching out to us. They feel our pain, and many have witnessed the same kind of suffering. And I'll just leave you with this. People said, how are you all going to come back and, take it from this punch in the stomach? And so I thought about it this morning, and so I said, well, all you have to do is look at Job. Job faced all kinds of atrocities in his life. And there were a lot of people saying, oh, just, give up, man. God is not looking out for you. Just give up. And then all of a sudden, even Job's wife tried to turn him against God. But Job made the statement, yea, though you slay me, I will rise again. Yea, though you have slain some law enforcement officials, this city, this state, and this nation will rise again. Thank you, and God bless you.
I'm Colonel Mike Edmondson. What I want to go with y'all is kind of an update of the case itself. We told you yesterday that we would provide you information. I think you're going to see that as we move forward. We're just a little more than 24 hours ago when he brought us all together. I want you to think about that and what's transpired over that time. So right at 30 hours, it was an ordinary Sunday morning. What happened after that was anything less than that. What we saw was extraordinary police officers, first responders, become extraordinary, become heroes. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Our hearts are broken, but our spirit is intact. Our soul has survived an unthinkable crime committed against this community. What we're going to see as we progress through this, and we're going to talk about each one of these, is you're going to see some photos. We'll come right here. We're going to go through some photos of actual scenes. We're going to go through a mapping in just a minute, because my intention here this afternoon is to take our viewers, our public, our community. I want to walk them through exactly what they were going through. You saw what was reported on TV. It was chaotic. Active shooters, multiple active shooters all over the area. People were scared, they were worried, they were concerned. We're going to walk them through it, and you're going to see unfolding in front of you exactly what happened that day. In this ongoing investigation, the most compelling piece of evidence is the video. It is the chilling and the sheer brutality of the shooting. There is no doubt whatsoever that these officers were intentionally targeted and assassinated. It was a calculated act against those who work to protect this community every single day. That indeed, ladies and gentlemen, is the shooter. That is engagement. You'll see that his movements are articulated, they're intact, they're combative, and they're real. We are building a timeline from 8:40 yesterday morning and working backward to determine where the suspect has been. As the lead agency, the Louisiana State Police is going wherever this investigation takes us. We are working hand in hand with the assistance of police, both the Baton Rouge Police Department, East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office, our federal partners within Louisiana and around the United States. This timeline, which will take us from 8:40 beyond, going backwards from that, and we're going to look at who he may have been associated with or spoken with, and if anyone else was involved in this assault or had any advanced knowledge of his intentions. However, we are confident that this suspect was the only shooter at the scene actively involved in the attack. Whether officers may have been involved in some other fashion remains to be determined. We do not believe the suspect has been in our community for at least several days. We do believe that. You're going to see the gun photo. This is the actual weapon. This is the one that killed those officers. You see the strap that he carried on him. That strap kept that rifle in place so that when he engaged those police officers, they were deliberate and they were extremely accurate. With respect to the weapons, 3 guns have been recovered, and those are being analyzed both through forensics and determining the ownership history. What you see there is he was armed with an IWI Taver SAR 5.56 caliber rifle. He was also armed with the Springfield XD 9.9 millimeter caliber pistol. There you see it in front of you. And also a Stag's Arm M4 variant 5.56 caliber rifle that was staged on the vehicle. It actually placed him inside the vehicle where he could get to it once he was parked. And we'll take you through that in just a couple of moments. A Chevy Malibu rental from Missouri was recovered from the scene. We are working to determine where the car has been and are continuing to process it for its evidence. What we're doing, With the phone that we have at the scene of this car, we're looking at the footprint. Where did it go? What areas did it go to? Where did that car come from the Missouri area? And we'll take it wherever it takes us. One of the most challenging or more challenging aspects of the investigation is examining the social media footprint of the suspect. It appears that he used social media extensively. You saw after the shooting yesterday, when he is deceased, when he's been killed by Baton Rouge police, someone was still actively on a Facebook page that they had created to say that he was still alive. Those are the things we're dealing with. And even though many in the media discounted that and said it's a hoax, we cannot take it that way, which is why we didn't release his name immediately, even though most of y'all had that particular name. We want to go through an evidentiary factor to where we, from forensic standpoint, we can take his fingerprints. Those were back through Missouri. We were able to work with the FBI and obtain prints from his military background where we could positively identify. So just because it's read about doesn't mean we haven't sought after it, investigated it, and vetted it. But before we release it, it's going to be based on fact, not on rumor. Multiple other pieces of evidence has been seized, and we are deploying all investigative methods to exploit their evidentiary value, including forensics, electronics, ballistics, and behavioral examinations. We continue to ask anyone who has information related to the suspect or his motives to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Same number as yesterday, 1-800-CALL-FBI. We're asking for your help in protecting the integrity of this investigation, and while there's much more that we know, there's also much that remains to be learned. This is a big puzzle. You're looking at a crime scene, which we're going to go into in some minutes, probably 300 to 400 yards. To meticulously go through that takes time, and that's what you're dealing with right here. We owe it to these officers. 3 officers are dead. 1 is fighting for his life. We owe it to them to do it right and to get it right. We owe that to them. And I think that the public demands nothing less. What I want to do just real quickly, I'm just going to, just so you get a picture of where we're at on this particular one. This gives you an idea of where Airline Highway going northbound towards Baton Rouge Police Headquarters. You see Fitness Expo, even though it's an older picture, we just put this together because we wanted y'all to have something. We want the viewers to see this. This is where Fitness Expo is, Benny's Car Wash, the BQ Quick, where he first was tried to engage a Baton Rouge police officer, Party City, this location, back right here is the Beauty Salon, where we're going to walk through the situation exactly how it happened. We believe while this individual was in the city, he was looking for locations to specifically target police officers. No doubt in my mind, you're going to see as we walk through this, there were citizens walking all through the area. He never encountered, he completely dismissed every single one. His intentions were accurate, and they were engaging, and they were all aimed at police officers. When he first comes into the area, this particular BQ mark, this location, you had a sheriff's deputy, East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's deputy, was working extra duty detail. He provides security to this location. He goes to multiple locations. He was at this location. A Baton Rouge City police officer in a marked unit was parked right here. As he came by, engaged, he came into the area. He took his car and parked it right here along this area. And we saw it because we could see the shadow. Multiple cameras in this location, the shadows. He comes right here. He's tactically moving along the back part of that building, watching what's going on around him. He's got that gun. You saw the earlier pictures where he's got that gun, where he's going forward. He's holding that in there. As he comes into it, he goes straight for this car. As he gets to the car, I think this was most chilling to the sheriff and to the chief, because as he approaches that car, he engaged into a manner like this towards the car. He then sees that there's no one in it. But he then comes back, gets back in his car, comes back on the highway, and he's coming down. He noticed a Baton Rouge police officer that is vacuuming his car at Benny's Car Wash. He sees that. He pulls into the Fitness Expo, comes back around and parks his car right here. Keep that in mind as we go back to this in just a few minutes. He then comes out. This police officer has left the scene. He left the scene that time. He then starts making his way back around, comes back around through the area, comes back over here. At this point now, that's when the calls had come in to say that there was an individual exact words, a dude with a rifle going down Airline Highway. So people are engaged. The police have gotten to the scene now. They go to where he went a while ago. They actually go this way. He comes in along the side here, and he works his way again down this side right here. He actually, at this end, this corner right here, instead of going right around the corner, he actually comes out to where he's tactically involved, ready to fire. He comes back around. These two Baton Rouge police officers and a sheriff's deputy have come back over here. Because remember, that's where he was running. That was the location he was going into. When he came back around, these two Baton Rouge police officers were right here standing. He shot both of them. One falls right here, this location. Another one moves himself back around here. This one is dead. This one is wounded at this point. He comes back around. A deputy that was with them, he goes back to a dumpster in this area right here and kind of hides behind the dumpster. He waits there and takes cover in that location with his gun drawn. He's got a clear view on this police officer that is wounded right here and is lying there. He can see him moving. We see that in the video. He comes back around and he starts going to aid. Now think about this. He hears and has heard the gunshots. He saw the guys in that area. This sheriff's deputy, he leaves his cover with his gun drawn. He goes back to that police. That's what we're trained to do. We're trained to take care of our own. He is going back to help that police officer. Guy's coming back around. He sees he's dead. He comes back in, and as the deputy's coming in, the shooter comes around this corner right here. At that point, he sees the deputy. He shoots the deputy. Shoots him right there. He sees movement on this guy right here and shoots him. So he's killed those three. He then tactically moves back on around and he comes running through this area. Somehow gets over this wall. We believe there's an air conditioning unit, goes into this area here, works his way back around, back to where his car is. At this point, you've got a sheriff's deputy that's sitting in his car. He'd gotten out, he'd gotten the license plate. He was going back in it to run the license plate. He's sitting in his car. When he comes back out, he shoots the deputy in the car. That's the one that's fighting for his life right now. Shots to the upper torso, and you're going to hear that from the sheriff in a few minutes. When he's making his way around, he's going to it. No doubt in our mind. There's police officers coming in here. He shoots a police officer and wounds him right here. Real quick, a deputy back over here, and when he was shooting back over here, these two police officers, something got his attention. A city policeman that was responding, he actually shot and wounded this city policeman right here. 3 dead, 1 injured at this location. Shoots the deputy in the car. He is going back at this location. He is going back to the deputy he shot in the car, which is back over here. At this point, he shoots and wounds a police officer in this location right here. Let me just tell you something. The responding Baton Rouge Police SWAT team, from this location right here, as this gunman is coming across right here, that is the fatal shot where he shot the shooter, over 100 yards. Think of the presence of mind in taking this shot right here. And that kind of leads you and puts you in a position where the viewers can see exactly what was unfolding based on what they heard on television, what they saw in the news, and they heard everybody talking about it. And what I want to do is certainly have Sheriff Gotro and Chief Deputy come up to talk about their officers and kind of give you a little more rundown of where those officers were to the best of our ability. Keep in mind it's an ongoing investigation. You've heard this from us all the time. The public has a right to know, and we want to give that ability. But we also want to protect the integrity of the case and where it is leading us to. A lot of moving parts, a very large puzzle. Some of those pieces are moving. So please keep that in mind as we provided this information to you.
Sheriff.
I'm here today to update you as far as the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Office goes. As an agency and as a family, we're grieving the loss of Deputy Brad Garofola. We've been in constant contact with his family. He leaves behind a wife and 4 children. I know they are hurting, but I want them to know that we are here for them now and forever. They are our family. We're also getting our deputies the assistance they need to cope with this tragedy. We still have another deputy that is currently fighting for his life. That's Corporal Nick Tullier. He was shot in the head and the stomach and has extensive damage. He's currently in ICU and there was a machine helping him breathe. He's in very critical condition. We ask for your continued prayers for his healing and for his family. And finally, we have a deputy that has non-life-threatening injuries, but serious injuries, and that's Sergeant Bruce Simmons. He is going to his second surgery this evening. It will be one of many. The bone running from his elbow to his shoulder was completely shattered. He now has a titanium rod in his arm. He has other reconstructive surgeries ahead of him, and we also ask for your continual prayers for healing with him as well. I want to reiterate some of what Colonel Edmondson said. We watched the video, and we watched the actions of our deputies and officers. They ran to the threat, not from the threat, in an attempt to protect and preserve life. They were ambushed by a man who was clearly targeting law enforcement. Deputy Garafola died attempting to get a fallen Baton Rouge officer to render aid. Deputy Garafola died as a hero, protecting and serving. So did the other officers. I think it's important that we remember as we move forward. They are gone, but they are not forgotten. We will be forever grateful for their service. The Baton Rouge City Police SWAT team arrived quickly on the scene, as the colonel said, and they were able to take down the lone shooter, preventing any further injury or loss of life. I want to say this. There's no doubt in my mind after watching those videos and seeing how this guy moved, how he operated, his proficiency, and his determination. And I'm going to go back to this. The first engagement, as the colonel showed you, was in this area here, where he killed one Baton Rouge City officer and wounded a second here. Then he had shot the third Baton Rouge City officer here. That city officer actually got around the corner and was crawling this way. They were out of sight of my deputy when the shooting started, because they had gone back this way in the building and he stayed behind the building. When the shooting started, he ran to take cover behind the dumpster. But when he saw the officer lying there and was clearly still alive, he moved along the building, and as the colonel said, was moving down the building to get to the officer to render aid. That's when the subject came from back around this side of the building and engaged my officer. My deputy went down fighting. He returned fire to the very end. He was laying on a prone position, returning fire. We could actually see in the video the bullets that were hitting the concrete around him. But once he knew that he had taken that deputy out, he turned his attention back to the wounded officer. He turned around, no further than from here, those cameras, and shot him twice. Then he moved on back through here, as the colonel said. So we've had one city police officer injured here, 2 killed, 1 deputy killed. He moved back through this area, and his car was parked generally here. As the colonel said already, Corporal Touye got out of his unit, checked the license plate, just gotten back in his unit where the guy came out. He started immediately firing into the car, all the time walking that way. His attention was drawn to a second deputy that was parked here, and at which time he started firing in that direction. That was the other deputy who was shot in the shoulder. And he told me last night when he got hit, it just wasn't on, nothing, no control. I am convinced that if he would have continued in that direction and finished off this deputy and that deputy as he did to these other officers and deputies over here, I am convinced that Baton Rouge City SWAT would not have arrived on the scene. We'd have had 2 more deceased deputies. This guy would have been in a position to get in his car and go on, travel, and seek other targets. But Baton Rouge City SWAT, you can't understand the shot that was taken here. They were in this area right here. They had to shoot through structure, and they took the subject down right here. The men and women responding to this scene yesterday are heroes, just like the men and women that put on a uniform each morning and each night. They are everyday heroes. And I ask this community to continue to keep them and their families in your prayers, and I ask this community to continue to pray for peace. We will get through this. Baton Rouge is better than this.
Chief Deputy.
Good afternoon. I stand here as a chief with a heavy heart, number one. This has been a whirlwind of, as Colonel said, 30 hours that has been devastating to the Baton Rouge Police Department, our officers, and our family, but also to the city of Baton Rouge. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the overwhelming 99.9% of this community who have supported, who have sent me messages, who have sent my officers messages, who have showed their support for the Baton Rouge Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, and our state police, for law enforcement in general here. It is completely overwhelming, the amount of support that we've gotten. I'm not going to get into the tactics here. I'm going to stand here as a chief and as a former instructor at the Academy of Tactics and just tell you how proud I am of our department, our training staff, our instructors, our SWAT team. They did exactly how they were trained, without hesitation, without fear, but with courage, with methodical movement. They did exactly how they were trained. They went to the fire. They didn't run. They didn't go the other direction. They didn't blow it off. They went straight to it. And I could not be more proud of these officers. I could not be more proud of my SWAT team. We've been questioned for the last 3 or 4 weeks about our militarized tactics and our militarized law enforcement. This is why. Because we are up against a force that is not playing by the rules. They haven't played by the rules. They didn't play by the rules in Dallas, and they didn't play by the rules here. This is why. We don't ever want to use it, but we have to have the ability to use it when we needed it, and we needed it here. As several have said, this guy was going to another location. He was not going to stop here. After he was finished here, I have no doubt he was heading to our headquarters, and he was going to take more lives. Our militarized tactics, as they're being called, saved lives here. That shot that our SWAT team made was a hell of a shot. But it had to be made. We had to neutralize the threat right there. We could not let it go any further. One of the officers who ran to this fight, Matthew Gerald, 41 years old, served less than a year with the Baton Rouge Police Department. Matthew was a devoted husband and father of 2. Before joining the Baton Rouge Police Department, let me tell you a little bit about Matthew. Matthew served in the United States Marine Corps and served United States Marine and in the United States Army. He was a Black Hawk crew member and served 3 tours in Iraq. He served his country proudly and with honor. His sense of service drew him to law enforcement when he got out of the military. He spent his whole life serving this country and our city, and he's a hero for everything that he's done. Corporal Montrell Jackson is 32 years old. He's a 10-year veteran. He worked at our Uniform Patrol Division. Montrell and his wife have been together for a total of 10 years. Montrell's son turned 4 months old today. Montrell was a loving and devoted husband. As an academy director, I served as Montrell's instructor, and for 20 weeks, I tested Montrell physically, mentally, and emotionally every single day. Montrell stood tall every day. He never wavered, he never quit. His heart was in service to this community. A couple of days before this happened, I went down in 3rd District and was talking to the guys trying to lift their spirits. Montrell ended up giving me a pep talk. As you heard as his post that he left on his Facebook page, his devotion was to the Baton Rouge City and to our department. And he ended up giving me the pep talk. I didn't give it to him. And that was the last time that I spoke to Montrell. And I'll never forget it. He is a true hero. I have something from his wife, Tarnisha, who wanted me to share this with you today. And I'll read what she said. Montrell was my everything. He was an amazing husband, an outstanding father, a respectful son, and a loving brother, and an amazing uncle, a trustworthy godfather, and a loyal friend. He loved his family, and he loved his fellow officers. I know without a shadow of a doubt, he loved his job and his city. Knowing this is what gives me a little peace and comfort. I know he made the ultimate sacrifice and paid the ultimate price in doing what he loved, protecting and serving a city that he loved. Thank you.
Well, U.S. Attorney.
Good afternoon. I'm Walt Green, U.S. Attorney. First, we continue to keep the law enforcement victims and their families in our prayers on a daily basis. We stand here together, committed a team of federal, state, and local law enforcement to investigate this horrific tragedy that was committed in our community. And I say again, it was our community. We are coordinating with federal authorities to include the U.S. Attorney's offices, FBI and ATF and other districts, as well as other officials in the Department of Justice to investigate this matter. In Baton Rouge, the U.S. Attorney's Office, Federal Bureau of Investigation, ATF, United States Marshal Service, and the DEA continues to provide assistance in this investigation. Attorney General Lynch is being made aware of every step of this investigation and continues to monitor the situation very closely. Yesterday, as I said, we will continue to investigate this matter and continue to devote all needed federal law enforcement resources until justice has been served. And as the governor said, no stone will be left uncovered in this investigation. We thank all of our law enforcement partners that are here today and the ones that are not here on the podium, as well as the mayor and the governor here in attendance for their cooperation and teamwork in investigating this case. I say to all law enforcement, you have our deepest sympathies while dealing with this horrific tragedy. And now, I would ask FBA Jeff Sillett to give some additional comments.
Good afternoon. First, on behalf of the men and women of the FBI, I want to extend our deepest condolences and prayers to the men and women of the Baton Rouge City Police Department and the East Baton Rouge Sheriff's Office. As been said up here numerous times, these men and women are heroes. Something that comes to my mind is the first responders' motto during 9/11. They called, we responded. Think about that. Human instinct is to run from the fight. These men and women are running into the fight to protect all of us. I am personally, as a law enforcement officer and as a citizen of this country, in awe by the men and women of this department and the strength of the men and women of this department. With our partners from local, state, and federal agencies, we will leave no stone unturned, as which has been set up here before. We are committing all resources to identify co-conspirators or facilitators, bring them to justice, and most importantly, and in parallel to bringing justice, keep the safety of our community. At the core of American values is unity. As toddlers, we learn the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to quote 7 words from the pledge. One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Standing up here before you is a unified team. Baton Rouge, unified. Louisiana, unified. America, unified. This will only make us stronger. We will work tirelessly to ensure safety in this community and throughout the nation. And please, every day, When you see a local or state police officer, thank them. They're the ones that are keeping you all and me and our families safe. I want to thank Governor Edwards and the mayor for your leadership. Governor Edwards has been an incredible leader in the state and for the country throughout the past 2 weeks with all the events that have been occurring in the state of Louisiana. And thank you for your partnership and your commitment. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to have time for a few questions for either myself, the chief, or the sheriff, or Governor Edwards to go forward. So,
Colonel Edmondson, our heartfelt condolences to all of you. My name is James Rose from Fox 4 News in Dallas. We just went through this very similar scenario, and it was hauntingly familiar to see what you just described. And I want to let you know that my organization has confirmed that Gavin Long was in Dallas recently trying to recruit, be a life coach, sell his book, and are you guys aware of that?
well, we know he's in several locations. As we work backwards from 8:40 yesterday morning, we want to look at the footprint of that car. Where has it been? Where has it traveled to? Who did he contact and who did he talk along the way? Any cell phone information we can extract and work on that, we're diligently doing, because it's important to us to look at that timeline that got him to yesterday morning. And why? Why did he come to Baton Rouge? Why did he pick Baton Rouge? Why did he pick that location right there? And why did he kill police officers? That's what's important to us. So we'll get to that. Yes, sir, right here.
Can you and the sheriff do something with me with this map? I'm Steve Osunzami with ABC News. Can you tell us where the officers were who were in their names? If you can on the map, if you could do that.
We'll do that after.
Can we do that
after.
And my other question is, if you can do that for us later. The other thing is, it looked like he was moving, he was running, or did he have a car? How did he get from this location down here
He
to
ran
the top?
by car back over here, and he ran. He was in shape. Clearly, he was in shape. Clearly, he was concentrating on exactly what he was trying to do. He was articulate in all manners of engagement. I'll just leave it at that. I think what you saw him going into was articulate in each one of them. Yes, sir.
Colonel, have you ruled out, Isaiah Carey from Fox and Houston, have you ruled out the possibility that it was in retaliation to what we saw here in Baton Rouge and Alton Sterling?
Well, we certainly haven't ruled out anything, but there's nothing to believe at this point that we can say it has something to do with that. Clearly, the landscape has changed since Dallas. I think y'all have seen that. As a country, you've seen that. So, no belief.
Colonel,
Yes, sir.
Two questions, and picking up on the Dallas reporter's question. Can you confirm that Gavin Long was in Texas in the days before he came to Louisiana? And secondly,
I cannot confirm that at this time. No, sir.
Can you confirm if his Twitter handle was Convos or Cosmos?
We're hearing all the same things you are. We want to apply it to facts, so we're not prepared to factually say that. But we've read and talked the same thing. Well, as we look back from 8:40 yesterday morning, that is what our investigators are trying to do. In interviewing those individuals that we believe and know that he came in contact with, why did he pick this location? Was it because police officers frequent this location on a morning, getting coffee, getting their car cleaned, or getting their car washed? We want to know those same answers that you have to the questions that you're all asking. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Colonel Edmondson, Ted Williams from Fox News. Have you been able to trace these guns at this stage in the investigation?
We're in the process of doing those, working very, very closely with ATF. The guns are at the crime lab. From a DNA standpoint, from a forensic standpoint, from a ballistic standpoint, we're putting all those pieces together. Melinda.
Do you know how long the gunman was in Baton Rouge? Do you know if he attended any of the Alton Sterling protests? Can you give us a little bit of the length of time that he was here?
We believe he was here for several days, and that's what our timeline right now is telling us. We don't want to go into any more of that because of the fact that there's some individuals we're trying to interview at this time, but we believe he was in here several days. Yes, sir.
As far as the officer that is currently in the IC unit, can you tell us what his prognosis is?
I talked to both of the surgeons that worked on him. One of those surgeons is a personal friend of mine. He's operated on me in the past. Their biggest concern is the head trauma, and his prognosis, he's in very, very critical condition. It's been touch and go for the family. He's been in and out, so to speak, his vitals have gone up and down, and you know, that's all I can say. We just, at this point, as I said earlier, we're just praying for him. It's in God's hands, and we just have to see what happens. But he's not in good shape at all.
Mark?
Sheriff, tell us about the officers that you're bringing in to kind of fill the ranks right now.
Well, we did two things. One thing, we activated the Louisiana Sheriff's Association statewide emergency task force. So we have deputies that are coming from all over the state to fill in, to spell our people, not just us, but as well as Baton Rouge City. Louisiana Association of Chiefs of Police has a similar task force, and they're doing the same thing. So all of this effort, relief effort, if you want to say, is being coordinated through the state police, and we're having deputies at this particular time and officers that are coming in to supplement both of our departments in the patrol function, so we can get these people rest. Some of these deputies and officers have been working for 12 days straight, you know, and I mean, it was very stressful. You know, everybody's been filled with a stress since, you know, through the protests, through now, and it's emotional drain on us as well as a physical drain. So we're making sure that we don't have people completely wear out, people that are out there that can make good decisions and are ready to serve the public.
When did he talk about ideology? What kind of, you know, groups that Mr. Long was involved with, or, you know, anything like that?
We're exhausting all areas within social media. We know there's a gamut of information that's out there. We're looking at each one of those individually, but until we can apply fact to it, before we can to make it a specific part of the puzzle or piece of the puzzle, we're not going at information. But please rest assured that everything that you're talking about, the question we're getting, we're looking at every single one of those on a constant basis.
Right here. Do you believe, Colonel, that he had help here in Baton Rouge?
We do know this much. We do know that the person that killed those police officers and the person that was killed by the Baton Rouge Police Department is this gentleman right here. That's what we do know. Whether or not he had any other help on this particular location, in that particular car at that time, no. But what did he do outside of that? That's all stuff part of the investigation that we're trying to tie together.
Right here, sir. When did he rent the car, and who took the shot?
Well, that's going to be part of that timeline as we go forward to tell us exactly that. But the SWAT, you talking about who took the shot that killed him? A Baton Rouge police officer, a SWAT.
And then in terms of the car, a couple weeks, anything like that?
We don't have a timeline.
Don't have a timeline on it. I want to be accurate when I do give you that statement.
Here in the back.
Colonel Iverson, speaking on timeline, the first 911 call that was made, first of all, were there multiple 911 calls? Is there any indication that the suspect made the calls himself? If not,
No indication that the subject made the call himself as we're looking into it. Calls came in from the public. And I think you saw that. This was public all in this area. They were going to that store at that time. They were there. He completely dismissed them. He walked by them. He was in that area. They actually saw him. And that was the phone calls that you came in, dude, on Airline Highway carrying a rifle.
So that first 911 call came in the middle of this, that he was already moving around targeting police officers before the
Within that time frame.
So he had already, but I think you said he had identified, if you can show us on the map, where he first started and when the first call happened.
All right, if I may.
Let me say this, the chief is not ready, and we're going to honor that request. He's not ready to identify exactly where his police officer was. So let's give him the benefit, he'll do that when he's ready,
Sure.
and we'll just let the sheriff identify where his deputies were and those names, please.
Part of the reason is that one of your deputies actually, the person who he went to, I'm curious if you can give us the name of that deputy. I don't know if that's possible. The deputy who he ran to, because, you know, that's part of he put himself in
Which
danger.
scenario?
Well,
The first engagement or the second?
Let's start with the first engagement, where the first engagement was before the 911 call happened. And then my second question is, one of your deputies put himself in further harm's way to help a second officer. I'd like to get the name. I think Garofalo was.
Yeah, I'll
and then
explain
who
that
the
to you.
officer was.
Let me answer both as we go through. When the suspect vehicle pulled up here, the Baton Rouge City unit had parked here, the officer had gotten out and went inside. When the suspect vehicle parked here, and the suspect was walking down the side of this building with his gun, there were other people walking around here. He totally ignored them. He acted like they weren't even there. He walked up about halfway here to police vehicle and was looking inside of it like he was looking for somebody to shoot. He didn't see him. He nonchalantly walked back. At this time, people had noticed him. I'm speculating, as we are, I don't know the exact timeline, that somebody at that time is who called 911. Because by the time he got in his car and went all the way around, that's when we started having responding units. There was one responding unit that came here. That's Deputy Tuyet. To answer your question about my deputies, this was Deputy Brad behind the building here. Was Deputy Brad Garafola. He is the deceased deputy. He is
building is that, Sheriff?
This is the beauty shop.
Beauty shop.
Yeah. He was, when he first heard the gunfire breakout, he came here behind a dumpster and took cover. And he saw this Baton Rouge City officer come around and collapse and attempt to crawl in his direction. That's when he went here and started in the direction of the officer when the subject came around here and opened fire on the deputy and killed him. Then, right after he did that, he saw that the Baton Rouge police officer was still alive, and he fired 2 more shots into him. Does that answer your question?
Last question.
Governor, you come from a law enforcement family. I saw tears in your eyes when Chief Davide was describing his last encounter with the officer. Tell us a little bit about how this hits home to you.
Well, it hits home to all of us. And I don't know that it's good or bad for a governor to cry, but I do on occasion, especially like this. As you mentioned, Sue, I do come from a law enforcement family. My sheriff happens to be my brother. I've got another brother who's the chief of police of the town of Independence here in Louisiana. My father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, all sheriffs of Tangipahoa Parish as well. But this community is grief-stricken whether or not they're related to law enforcement. But for those who were the direct family members with whom I visited yesterday at the hospital, I will just tell you that that experience was profound. And I contrast the innate goodness of those officers and those families with the evil of this shooter. And having seen the video last night of how this shooter conducted his attack on these officers, and I will tell you, it is unsettling, and it is emotional for me, but I remain convinced that the Baton Rouge community in the state of Louisiana is going to come together as a result of this. I already see that that's happening. We are better than this, and I'm going to say this, and then we're going to wrap it up. I want everyone to know around the country, for 6 days prior to this incident yesterday morning, there had not even been an arrest in Baton Rouge related to the unrest that followed immediately on the heels of the Alton Sterling shooting. Not even an arrest. And none of the arrests that were effectuated even happened because of a significant act of violence. That did not happen in Baton Rouge until this individual from out of state came here and yesterday engaged in this just horrific act of violence directed towards our law enforcement community. And so it's obviously very troubling for me. It's an emotional time for everybody. But we are going to get through this. We're going to be more united than ever. And we stand behind our law enforcement. Thank all of you.
We're going to leave this up. Y'all are welcome to come look at this. We'll keep the pictures up for you, and they can go through it as y'all need. State Police Facebook also has all this information and the picture on it. Thank you.